Sal, I want to start apologizing to you. I start by apologizing to you and our viewers. It's difficult to describe the complexity of what I'm attempting to do with this car studio, and it went a little bit sideways yesterday, but that is no matter. We're here to talk today about this amazing, kind of unprecedented array of things that are unfolding with the NYPD. You have been so on top of this story, and I want to make sure we cover it completely. So why don't you tell us exactly what's been going on and let everybody know what is the latest breaking news here.
All right, so of course, yesterday what we had was the chief of department, or the former chief of department, Jeffrey Maddrey, was raided by the FBI. No, it was not the New York City Police Department, Internal Affairs. They were nowhere near the scene. So that first of all is something that's thrown out there, but is a lie. We don't know exactly why he's been raided. Of course, we know that he was also suspended. The reason he was suspended is after, I think it was myself, John McCarry, Eric Dim, we kept explaining over and over again online that you cannot suspend the victim whistleblower in this instance, which is Lieutenant Epps, who is alleging there is a quid pro quo for sexual harassment. Suspend her, which, by the way, was Jeffrey Maddrey, while he was still the NYPD chief of department, suspended her, resigns 24 hours later, and that suspension is still standing. So the NYPD has 30 days from that date, which is December 18th, to investigate, bring charges, and then terminate Quatisha Epps for essentially, making allegations that she's being preyed upon by this degenerate. So finally yesterday, Jason, he was raided by the feds. We don't exactly know why. They also hit multiple locations, which is probably, I am assuming, I don't know for sure, that this would be other residents of Jeffrey Maddrey or maybe his family. We also know he has a brother that retired from the NYPD and a brother that's currently in the NYPD. So I don't know if that's in relation to all of this, but they've hit numerous locations. Now, Jason, we know in the last few months, the FBI has also raided numerous other people, not only involved in the New York City Police Department, but in the Eric Adams administration. And this is just a long list of people that have been raided by the Southern District of New York in regards to a case that we assume is surrounding Eric Adams. And of course, Jeffrey Maddrey was also another person that frequented our favorite shuttered nightclub, Con Sofrito in the Bronx, which has also had numerous other people that frequented there also raided, such as the former police commissioner, Ed Caban, whose brother owned the place. We had all these other top executives that no one wants to tell you, but they were also raided and also had their electronics subpoenaed by the FBI. So this is a sprawling case. It's not just about sexual harassment. It's about many other things. And we now know for a fact that not only Eric Adams being raided by the feds, and I mean raided by, they stopped him in the middle of the street, went in his truck, took all his electronics. That's a fact. We also know that the feds raided not one, but two police commissioners consecutively, may I add. Ed Caban, a former NYPD police commissioner, and Tom Donlin, the prior police commissioner before now Jessica Tisch. And now the chief of department, Jeffrey Maddrey. That is unprecedented to have this array from the mayor to his top person in the police department, the police commissioner, two of them, and now the top ranking member of the police department, the chief of department, Jeffrey Maddrey. This is unprecedented. It's Eric Adams, as we know, Jason likes to tout himself as the first of this and the first of that. Those are three things that are exclusive, that belong only to him in the laurels of New York City history.
It's really unbelievable, Sal. I mean, first of all, before we go deeper into this, I want to make sure people understand where they can follow you. On X, you are at the Sal Greco, and of course, people can find your website, salgreco.com. People who are interested in what's going on with the NYPD really need to follow Sal. He's got really the best information on this that I've seen anywhere, you can support his work at salgreco.com. Click on that support tab and just go down there and send him some money so he can keep doing these shows. I don't know if people realize that, when you get kicked out of the NYPD from all these crooked allegations they've brought against you, it's difficult to make a living and keep doing this. But Sal, you've been bringing forward some incredible information. I want to make sure people understand exactly what's going on here. So the female officer who was involved in the sex scandal, you're saying she was a victim? They suspended her after she tried to blow the whistle, or what exactly happened there with Epps?
What happened here, Jason, is there's a whole scandal involving overtime. There was a misuse of funds, which is overtime. Now, what had happened is in October, Maddrey was making some, moves on Lieutenant Epps, who finally rebuffed everything and said, "I've had enough of being basically your, what are we going to call her? Like your victim, your go-to person." Because as you know, when you're involved in something like this, there's always like a bully situation. Like, she had a mortgage to pay, she had things to pay, and she has no choice but to continue and to come forward and say, "I'm being harassed, I'm being threatened," things like that. You're going to be exiled pretty quick. So people jumped at the first instance of the media picking up on this when the job, which was the NYPD, put her on top of the top 400 list of earners in the NYPD. So she made $400,000. Some of that, may I add, for 1 year. But some of that, as we know, they're not reporting, is she had a raise. It's part of her lieutenant contract. And also she received a raise, I believe, because she's also special assignment lieutenant, which is also another pay raise. So you get that in increments. You get that over time. So that was about $30,000 extra that wouldn't have been there. So it's less than $400,000. But they're saying that she made an exuberant amount of overtime, and they try to make it as if Lieutenant Epps could sign her own overtime slips, make her own hours. And apparently, as a lieutenant, which is a lot lower than the chief of department, she could run roughshod, which, as you know, in an organization like the NYPD, Jason, there's many checks and balances. This should never be happening because it won't be allowed. Obviously, there's people way above her that have meetings, and we learned from First Deputy Commissioner Tanya Kinsella, who said this, he testified in front of City Council, that there's biweekly meetings and that they speak every week about the budget and overtime. So how do you get by? And she's in charge of this, by the way, all the overtime codes and the budget of the New York City Police Department. So how did you not catch, if it's just her making over 1,400 hours of overtime? So the NYPD was looking to make her a scapegoat, and what she's alleging is because she rebuffed Jeffrey Maddrey's advances and had enough of being involved, under his thumb. So then they made her out to be this, evil person that's stealing all this overtime. When in reality, we're finding out that no, there are plenty of people, and they omitted the real list and certain people from that list of high earners. And that includes other offices, such as the Chief of Patrol Office, which was led by the now, unfortunately for New York City, Chief of Department John Schell, who's up to his eyeballs in corrupt actions. In fact, his mentor is Jeffrey Maddrey. The Deputy Commissioner Operations Office, which is led by Kaz Dawdry, another crony of Jeffrey Maddrey and Eric Adams, who's I don't even know why he's still in that position. Other office like Tanya Kinsella, First Deputy Commissioner, her office and her cronies that are in there. All these people, and many other offices, internal affairs, all these people had their cronies, their underlings on this list, and they're omitted. We don't know why, but we have a pretty good idea right now, Jason. And what's funny is I came to find out recently, Tanya Kinsella, First Deputy Commissioner, was interviewed by the police commissioner when this all happened, and she had no answers and was crying and shivering like a little child. And if you have someone in leadership who's doing that, that's quite sad, really. That just shows you the depths of what's going on here, Jason. So there's a lot more to come. There's a lot of people that are implicated that you haven't heard about yet that will soon come out. But in the end, Jason, That office, chief of department office, is led by Jeffrey Maddrey. In the end, just like you are in a precinct, the police officer doesn't write their own overtime slips. They don't approve their own overtime slips. They also just can't run around and do whatever they want because there's supervisors in charge of them. So if you go up the chain in a precinct, in a structure, rank and structure, it's the commanding officer. In this instance, the commanding officer would be a chief by the name of Fedorov. But again, that guy, Fedorov, who would have signed an unusual report, a 49 was what we call in the NYPD, in regards to the overtime, allowing this Lieutenant Epps to make all this overtime. In reality, he has to answer to Jeffrey Maddrey. There is no such instance where any supervisor just says, do whatever you want, and we're not going to inform Jeffrey Maddrey, who's in charge. So that's what people are missing. And finally, these missing pieces are being filled in. And I'm hoping I'm helping everyone with that, because the New York City taxpayer and all of America should know this is a huge scandal. So many things have happened, and I think it's worse than 35 years ago with Michael Dowd and the Knapp Commission and all that stuff that happened. This is far, far worse, and it's broad, many different areas. We also have the nightclub scandal. You have the extortion racket. We have the turkey donors and all that stuff.
Because I want to make sure we understand this, because you are shedding light on this, and I think what you've just helped me understand, because when this first came out about Tisch Epps, it did seem like she was, doing something wrong and kind of, part of the whole corruption. But, what you've just explained to us, I didn't realize she filed an equal opportunity employment complaint on the 21st of December, which is just a few weeks ago. So she's basically made an official complaint saying she's being sexually harassed. And it was after that this all came out about her. Is that right? Because it sounds to me like what you're saying is they sort of cornered her, forced her to be the one to make it look like she's the one who's doing something wrong with the overtime, but they're really just laying it at her feet. Is that correct?
Correct. That's what's really going on. And if you've also looked at in the past, it was another woman that filed a sexual harassment lawsuit in the New York City Police Department and also had a secret office inside of Jeffrey Maddrey's office when he was the borough chief of Brooklyn North, and that's Dana Ratchlin. And she's a victim. She was sexually assaulted by someone, we don't know who, and you read her complaint, and it reads as follows, that Jeffrey Maddrey and John Schell, who's the chief of department now, and Kaz Daughtry, who's the deputy commissioner of operations, along with a civilian named Brian Adams, who also works for the NYPD, smeared her. They were sending letters, and it's actually in the lawsuit, to the police commissioner at the time, Keyshawn Sewell, and explained how she was dirtying people up and making allegations up. And she's gone through hell, and she's a victim. But they have her as an anti-police activist, whatever that means. So they okayed, the police department and this crew were okay with smearing this woman. And it's very disturbing that even occurred. So it's in the history of Jeffrey Maddrey, also the Tabitha Foster case. His history is of being abusive, putting his hands on women, and also smearing them. And he doesn't do it himself. He'll have his cronies, which is Schell, Daughtry, Brian Adams, other people. They all smear the victims. And they do that, as you could tell, through the media, which is what they tried to do here initially when the first article came out prior to her making her complaint official, because she just wanted to retire. That's all she wanted, because she knew she was under a lot of duress from Jeffrey Maddrey and company. It's almost like a cabal, Jason. We have, I've discussed this prior and also on my show with we call them the Consofrito Network, which was this nightclub owned by a mob associate. Well, he's the manager, the mob associate, self-admitted criminal Jimmy Rodriguez, who has a checkered past, and owned by the police commissioner at the time's brother, Richard Caban, frequented by numerous felons, where there's also allegations that came out of human trafficking that were reported to the New York City Police Department, that we have the report and we don't know what the police department did, because obviously Eric Adams took over, and then, Caban was put in a position of real leadership as originally the first deputy commissioner of the New York City Police Department before he was the police commissioner. He was the first deputy commissioner. So this is all going on. It's a lot to take. But if you follow what I've been saying, you will see that no matter what you think of Quatisha Epps, she's a victim. And she was blowing the whistle, and she had enough of being a victim of Jeffrey Maddrey, where he's done this numerous other times and people don't come out. And it takes somebody like myself, like you, like John Macari, like Eric Dim, like Marlon Bethel, that blow the whistle, and then people say, well, you guys have axes to grind. But that doesn't mean that we're telling a lie. It doesn't mean it's not the truth. And guess what? That's an axe of truth that we're wielding, that now the victims and witnesses are coming forward because they saw that axe come forward. That's what all it takes. You're going to have to take some slings and arrows from certain areas, like legacy media that's completely failed. They've failed the public here because they've known about Concha Frito and all these other things, and they stay quiet because, Eric Adams' complexion is his protection, as Curtis Lever always states. So why even bother? Why care about victims or witnesses, right? That's what it feels like, Jason. And it's shows like this, it's independent media, it's podcast and the platform known as X, where people now go to hear the truth. And in fact, there's an article in the New York Post about it, I think written by Joe Concha. So that's what it takes. Eric Dim, John Macari, Marlon Bethel, myself, Jason, we've all been smeared for numerous different reasons, which, trust me, the police department, we now know, is very skilled at that, especially with Jeffrey Maddrey and Eddie Caban and all these other guys that were in charge. But that never meant that we were not telling the truth, because it ends up being now what we said was true. This department is completely compromised. I mean, Jason, there are 120 chiefs right now on the books being paid. Either they're running their time, so about half of them are not active. So there's about 60 chiefs on the job that are active. Jason, there was a time when there was barely 5 or 6 chiefs.
Yeah. I mean,
why did we inflate this to 60 chiefs?
Right. Why so many? How could you have so many chiefs? Too many chefs spoil the kitchen. I think too many chiefs spoil the NYPD. But Sal, I want to really emphasize this, because you're right. This has been in the mainstream media, but honestly, until you started explaining this, I don't think I realized exactly what was going on until today, because you hear this sex for overtime, and it's just the average person thinks, oh my God, all the cops are so totally corrupt. But I mean, you got to imagine it would start out something like, maybe these women, they need money, right? So somebody gives them overtime, and then it starts to become a little too much overtime, and it's like, hey, why don't you do a little something? And then before they know it, they're kind of in this thing. I could see how a predatory boss could entrap an employee like that step by step and kind of baby step somebody into something like that. And the fact that this woman came forward and blew the whistle, so they suspended her as a punishment, as retaliation. That's brazen. Don't the executives in the NYPD know they're going to be in so much trouble for doing that? They don't care.
They don't care, because under this administration, it's like the feeling of being bulletproof. I don't know. That's Eric Adams. He still walks around and he thinks that everything's fine. And, he's a political prisoner when he's anything but that. And basically right now, Jason, he could forget about any pardon talk, because his name will surface with these allegations, because, Jason, he was out with these gentlemen, Jeffrey Maddrey and Eddie Caban, and he's partying with them at Concha Frito. He's out at Zero Bond, and he's having fundraisers. Jason, he's definitely involved in one form or another, whether he was there personally or he's being informed, because, again, now he's the mayor. Jeffrey Maddrey's his good friend. Eddie Caban's his good friend. He talks glowingly of these people. Everyone that we're discussing, he speaks as if they're his best friend, and he backs them 100%. So how is he not knowing? And Jason, he's involved in every facet of the NYPD. Here's this restaurant that he was constantly at with all these people, and it's sickening to hear what had happened there, and it's all kinds of crazy allegations, and yet nothing was going. It was like nothing. It's okay for police officers to associate with certain criminals. But in my case, Roger Stone's, they say, is a criminal, so you're not allowed to be pictured with him, or you're gonna lose your job. But anyone else, you can hang out with anyone in this place, and there's street level criminals at this place, Jason. Fat Joe, Peter Guns are felons. No cop should be anywhere near those guys. They're involved in gang-like activity. They were in jail for that. When you hear, oh, they try to redo their life, I believe too in a second chance. But in this instance, if you look at Jimmy Rodriguez's history, which he is a self-admitted criminal and a mob associate, his places have always had numerous activity, nefarious characters. The place always gets shut down. The allegations we're hearing now with the human trafficking and the narcotics use, that's every place he's ever been involved in one facet or another. I mean, he had a laundromat, Jason, where, of all people, Hillary Clinton announced her candidacy for the Senate in New York State, and she did it in front of his laundromat. And in the background on the window was a slip that said, anyone looking to get paid from Jimmy's Cafe, since it was closed at that time and just shut it out of nowhere, come here to get your money. And then the partner was then indicted by the feds shortly after. It's funny, there's a thumbs up, but I'm not thumbs up. I'm just saying this is crazy. And this is the world of Eric Adams. And the people need to be informed. And it's through shows like this, through a show like mine, through shows like The Finest Unfiltered, where you're going to hear information that the legacy media either neglects to inform people or just doesn't want to for whatever reason. They're busy commenting on Donald Trump 24/7. I'm a Trump supporter, but my God, I mean, there's more. You got to let the air out of the room a little bit. Not all life surrounds one person, but a lot happens and they just don't report on it. And if they would have, the taxpayers would be informed. Even we'll say the low information voters, which is what Eric Adams loves to pick on. A Democrat Party talking point and who they always try to aim at is a low information voter, because these are the people that just vote and say, hey, we're the same skin color. We shop at the same store. That's who I'm going for. That's what they want. They don't want to inform you with stuff like this, because when you start hearing about it, you go, hey, my money is funding corruption. They're stealing my own money. But they don't want you to know that. They're just going to say, oh, my brother, or oh, my sister, or hey, look, me and you have the same shirt. We go to the same store. That's the whole Eric Adams mentality. And there's a lot of politicians like that, when really they need to be held accountable because they work for you, not the other way around, even though that's what they wanted to appear as.
It's almost impossible. Here we go. Wow. So look at this, Sal. I had to go to Yandex.com to find an article about this. Yandex is it's like the Russian Google. But this Taken to the Cleaners by the Village Voice did not show up at all on Google. This is from 2004. Celebrity restaurant owner Jimmy Rodriguez has dropped out of sight recently. So, I mean, Village Voice, I don't know if you would call that mainstream. Is that even still around? But it's totally suppressed when I was searching for it on Google. Here it is, Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. I mean, if you were trying to find some information about this and relying on Google, this is so sinister, Sal. I mean, Yeah. So let's go back a second to Canso Frito, because we saw that reporting from those, independent news outlets. I think it was The City or one of those. But Caban has not been indicted, right? He just resigned from the police. Nothing has really happened to him.
So far, he was raided by the FBI along with his brother. There were whispers that the third brother, Richard Caban, also had to forfeit his phones and electronics, but we haven't heard much from that moment on. Now, that doesn't mean there's nothing going on, because as you know, I see a pattern, and it seems to be like every Thursday or Friday, look out, someone else will be raided. And there's also instances of things happening where people were picked up in the street, NYPD executives that had to forfeit their phones and electronics also. So they work, but they work at their own pace, and you never know when the FBI is going to show up. But just know that they're looking at something, and it seems to be it's a RICO case to me. It seems it's a network. And originally I was told that, 200, I think I either misspoke or was told the wrong way. There were at least 200 people that would have been indicted. I believe it's 200 people that they are looking at as far as they want their electronics and text
Sal? Uh-oh. Sal? Something happened. We froze there. What happened? Are we off air? Sal, you got me? Something's going on here. I'm not sure what.
I got it.
Oh, there you go. You're back. Okay, good.
Yes.
So there you go. You see, we get the mobile internet. It's always, you just give me a heart attack. Okay, so you're saying there's 200 people involved. This is a massive RICO. It's not just a RICO. People who don't understand the scope of this thing, I mean, John Gotti, he didn't have the apparatus of the state government, Letitia James, all of that. This is unprecedented in the history, not only of New York, but the United States, isn't it?
Well, you know what it is it's in regards to police officials, and I want people to realize that it's the police department acting as if they were, the mob that you're talking about. Consafrito is basically the Ravenite Club of this, we want to call it, I don't know, mini organization. It's a crime syndicate. It's the Eric Adams crime family. And you have to assume that whatever they do, that they're sending bits of maybe envelopes or stuff back to Eric, because his whole thing seems to be kickbacks, whether they're city contracts. Right now, anyone defending him has a city contract, probably they're aiming for one, they have one, or they're part of this network and don't want to be, in trouble themselves. Because, why else would you say anything good about this administration or Eric Adams? Which, by the way, starting from 2022, Jason, who's left from his cabinet? His legal counsel left. His first deputy mayor is gone. His public safety, he's gone. His deputy to that is gone. His chief advisor is gone. His police commissioners, numerous, are gone. Everyone's gone. His fire commissioner, the sanitation commissioner, he moved from the sanitation commissioner back to the NYPD. But, I don't even think Jessica Tisch is really in charge, because she anointed John Schell, who we know is involved with Jeffrey Maddrey's business, and then Philip Rivera, who's now the chief of patrol, and we know, and I've showed the evidence, he's a frequenter of Consafrito and a friend of this Jimmy Rodriguez. Therefore, he should be terminated under the same terminology they used to get rid of me. But that shows you that the system is flawed. Disciplinary actions are just arbitrary, and they just do and say whatever they want. And they're not really held accountable because, as you see, many of the legacy media is out bootlicking for John Schell and Kaz Daughtry, and they'll say that, it's what are we going to call this? They're going to say it's back the blue, but they'll do this: back the blue with a blindfold. We don't want to question anybody. Rah, rah, rah for the police. Sometimes they do abuse their authority, and we're going to act like they don't. And the people that are really abusing their authority are the ones up top. Jason, the scandal from many years ago involved a cop, Michael Dowd. It reached a little higher up, but it was mostly these cops in the street doing all the dirty work. Same thing as with Serpico. Here, it's the opposite. It's the upper echelon doing all the dirty work, and it's trickling down. So you need to cut off the head of the snake, which would be Eric Adams, because I highly doubt that they're going to do anything about anyone up top in the New York City Police Department. It's just a sad fact. But that's what's really going on here, and people need to see this for what it is.
Now, Sal, let me just pause you for 1 second, because I think when we had that data problem there, your video has frozen. Why don't you just log out and then log back in? And while you're doing that, I'm going to remind people that they can support your excellent work by going to salgreco.com, and people can scroll over to the support tab and click on that. You can send Sal a payment of your choice, any amount. Sal is doing this to help people understand what's going on, and it's really important work. I want to make sure people know they can support Sal. And there he is. He's back in there, Sal. Let's see if that video comes back. Have we got you? There we go.
There we
yeah, now you're back. Good.
There
good,
you go.
Good. See that? All right. So let's continue because
Technology.
exactly. You got to be able to, tame it. It's a bear. It's actually snowing where I am right now, so I don't know if that's affecting. There's so much going on in the car studio here. I want people to understand that I'm not doing this because I'm homeless. I'm doing this because I'm on a road trip, and as you pointed out, Sal, I've been stalked and harassed by individuals who I believe are associated with the government. They have no fear of any kind of justice. The judge in one of my cases is Jessica G.L. Clark, used to work for Letitia James for many years. In fact, that's Goodman versus the city of New York. So it's very interesting that somebody who seems at least peripherally connected to Eric Adams is overseeing a case that I brought as a result of being assaulted by individuals who showed me a badge. But when I said, show me that, are you NYPD? Identify yourself. The woman refused to do that. She was certainly undercover, not uniformed NYPD. And it really fit the profile of what you've been telling us about Edward Caban, his brothers, shaking down businesses and, getting them to hire private security. And the people who did it to me clearly had no fear of getting in trouble. They waited around to talk to the cops. I want to explore that case in the future with you, but there's still more to talk about with everything that's been going on with the NYPD. You've been breaking news over on your X account. People can follow you on X at the Sal Greco. So what else is happening? There's like a bunch of things happened just yesterday and today, right?
Well, there's a lot surrounding this whole case, obviously, and people like to credit Jessica Tisch as a red herring, and pretty much have exposed she's anything but that. For the facts of the transfers that are going on and people being moved around, things need to happen in order for people to call CYA to cover your ass. So there are people that are involved that want, they don't want to be attached to any of this stuff. So they'll throw the underlings to the wolves. So people from internal affairs, people from other areas, chief of department, and they're shifting around, people running for the door, trying to retire to save themselves. You're seeing a lot of that. But the one move, the move I am going to keep harping at that proves that Jessica Tisch is a billion-dollar puppet is the fact that she appointed John Schell to chief of department and Philip Rivera to chief of patrol. That clearly cannot come from somebody who's a red herring looking to shake up the department. And I even heard Ray Kelly this morning, a former police commissioner who I will admit I worked under, and I thought he was the best police commissioner at that time, but there's ties back from him to Tisch. So his cronies are ones getting hired by her right now at $264K a year to work for her in the New York City Police Department. So I believe he has a vested interest in saying she's doing a great job. And even Sid Rosenberg agreed with her. I don't know how. I mean, how can you appoint someone who off the bat, Jason, John Schell, appears corrupt just because he's standing next to Jeffrey Maddrey, who said is his mentor? He's picked a ton of fights with the media. We see his associations and ties back to our nemesis when they call him the bootlicker news. Orrin Levy. I mean, he's running around as a propaganda channel for those guys. We don't know how, but we assume or we believe that Orrin Levy is somehow attached back to the New York City Police Department or the mayor's office, getting paid for something somewhere, somehow. But John Schell has picked numerous fights with the media, ran afoul over rules that belong to the city charter, the New York City Police Department. He's associating with criminals himself. He was involved in a shooting where he should have been terminated for that, but yet here he is as the chief of department, and this is a horrible anointment to chief of department. He is not a cop's cop. He preys on young, impressionable rookie cops who want to work, promises them the world, and the second something goes wrong, he will say, "What did your training tell you to do?" and run away. He's done this numerous other times. So that is a bad appointment, and so is Philip Rivera, who we know has frequented and is pictured with his pal, Jimmy Rodriguez, a self-admitted criminal mob associate. How is it that everybody can hang out with Jimmy Rodriguez, but if you somehow make a post about Roger Stone or Donald Trump, they fire you. So this is a double standard. The appearance of impropriety is huge. Yet Jessica Tisch appointed them in a ceremony that I don't think anyone saw at Times Square on New Year's Eve. So
Whoa.
that shows me, Jason, she's not in charge. She can rearrange the furniture, but she can't paint the room.
Huh. New Year's Eve. That seems quite weird to do that. Now, you had mentioned previously that Jessica Tisch was some kind of technology czar for the NYPD, and there was that whole scandal where they had Clearview facial recognition software. Do we have any evidence that she had anything to do with that?
So she brought in that technology. She brought in the cell phones that were a complete disaster and a complete waste of time with the New York City Police Department. And then the person that took over this unit, I believe, was an inspector that recently had his Porsche taken by the FBI. They went over there and were looking into his Porsche and his department vehicle. So the legacy would be she handed the baton to someone who ended up being corrupt. So there are questions in regards to that. She went to sanitation where you could look around the city. There's filth and garbage everywhere. I don't know what kind of job she did. If people say, oh, she's great, and other people say my garbage doesn't get picked up for weeks. And that was her job. She was the commissioner. And now she's a police commissioner where people in the legacy media are giving her credit for things that if you really get down to the nuts and bolts, she doesn't have a say. Eric Adams, when he ran for mayor, and Ray Kelly said this on the Sid Rosenberg show actually this morning, and Curtis Lewa has said this too, that when he was running for mayor against Curtis Lewa in 2021, Eric Adams asked the other Democratic candidates in the primary that if they were to somehow beat him, that they would anoint him as their police commissioner. He is obsessed with leading the police department. He's always been obsessed since his days back in the Transit Guardians, then the Grand Council Guardians, and then eventually 100 Blacks in law enforcement. That's who Eric Adams is. And right now, his life is on the line. Therefore, he's going to be making all the decisions, even though he has agency heads. And I just want people to go back. Bill de Blasio, horrible mayor. Questionable whether he's as bad as Eric Adams. But when it came to his functions from the police department or the fire department, his commissioners call the shots. So that's the way it should run. That's how a city runs smoothly. Michael Bloomberg, same thing. Ray Kelly was the police commissioner. So you always had a consistency. You knew what you were getting, whether you liked it or not. Here, it's chaos. 4 police commissioners in less than 3 years. It's unbelievable that happened. But he is a horrible character judge. He doesn't know how to judge anyone's character. He's just a horrible leader. And he has low integrity, Eric Adams, and that's what you're seeing right in front of your eyes. And I'm not saying Jessica Tisch is a bad person, but I just think here's someone who just has a job to have a job. I mean, if she walked into a precinct, you would say she's probably here to file a report instead of being a police commissioner. I mean, she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. You know what I mean, Jason? I mean,
it's very weird.
Being a police commissioner, she never even made an arrest.
That's what I mean. Isn't the police commissioner usually, I mean, Bernard Carrick, he was like a narcotics officer. It's usually somebody with tremendous experience and understanding of how the police work. But let me take you back to something that you helped everybody understand a little bit earlier, how they kind of entrapped Lieutenant Epps in that pay for sex scheme that she didn't want to participate in at all. What if something similar is happening to Tisch? Like maybe, she's sort of baby stepped into this Clearview AI thing, and now she's implicated in so much stuff that she's just one of the people who, hey, you better do this or you're going down with us kind of thing. We've got this article here from the Intelligencer, which is talking about Alex Spiro, the flamboyant lawyer trying to keep Eric Adams out of prison. This is Elon Musk's lawyer. He's won big for Jay-Z and Bob Kraft, and the mayor may be his toughest case yet. This is a little bit strange that a lawyer like this would be representing the mayor. He doesn't make the kind of money that Elon Musk and the NFL owner and Jay-Z make. It's weird, isn't it?
Not only is this weird, if you've actually Look, about a week and a half ago, I believe there was reports about Alex Spiro being on the board of some Turkish foundation, and that would raise red flags immediately because, of course, Eric Adams is indicted because he took $10 million in public matching funds via Turkish straw donors. There were people from the Turkish government involved. They're trying to buy a seat. That's what that's called. So Eric Adams' lawyer, Alex Spiro, is part of some board that belongs to the Turkish foundation or Turkish government. So that would be another red flag and saying, why is he, there it is. What is this about?
App. Well, let's look into this for a second here. A Turkish transportation app that connects users with taxis, e-bikes, and electric scooters is named attorney representing Mayor Eric Adams in this federal corruption case to its board of directors. What the hell is going on here? Why does Alex Spiro care about hailing cabs in Turkey?
The last lawyer I know that was into the cabs was Michael Cohen, another huckster. That what happened with that? The medallions, remember that?
Right, with the Russians or Ukrainians. Who was that? The taxi king. Something big is going on here, Sal.
Yeah, and who's in charge of contracts like that for New York City? Oh, that's right, the mayor. The mayor, another kickback, right? That is a red flag in itself right there. That's a conflict. But who's to stop Eric Adams, who's a conflicted man himself? And there, right there, in a nutshell, you kind of see how this, it never ends. It's always a circle that just encapsulates Eric Adams. This is a very alarming thing right here.
Absolutely. This just happened in December. So is this Alex Spiro trying to put out fires? He's joining the board? Why would he do that? This is very weird. Maddrey
I don't think he needs the money.
Inc. I don't think so. But he's joined the board of Maddrey Technologies, Inc. just weeks after Elon Musk's longtime attorney visited the headquarters of the Turkish mobility super app. Whoa.
See?
This is so strange, Sal.
And this is what I'm saying. This is another issue at hand when it comes to Eric Adams. I know this article keeps harping about Elon Musk, but I don't think when's the last time he represented Elon Musk? He's representing Eric Adams in multiple suits. He just dropped out of the one he shouldn't have been in, which was the sexual assault case that the city is representing Eric Adams, and they shouldn't even be doing that. It should be Alex Spiro representing him in that case. He dropped out of that one because he was browbeating a witness. Because very clearly, if you look at the documents of the case, Spiro's not representing Eric the way a lawyer should be representing a client. He represents Jay-Z the way a lawyer should represent a client. But you saw that the judge came down on him in regards to Jay-Z. And sooner or later, the judge is going to come down on him with Eric Adams because he's doing all kinds of things. It's not conventional. It's, but I think he realizes that Eric, the money's dry. He can't keep paying Alex Spiro. He's run out of money. So
wait a minute.
A decision has to be made there. And by the way, the conflict, the board, the election board, the ones in charge of the matching fund program, the city wants the $10 million back that Eric Adams took, by the way, from 2021. So
I like that.
Yeah. How is this guy going to pay?
Let me bring you back to a point that you just made. When you say Alex Spiro is not representing Eric Adams the way a lawyer should, what do you mean by that? Elaborate on that if you can.
So he, if you look at the documents, he's asking for a speedy trial. I think he wanted in April. He wanted to forego discovery. He can't forego discovery because in that discovery is actual classified information that only he, the prosecutor, and the judge can sit in and overlook. Because there's classified documents in this case. I don't know if people know this. So Alex Spiro wants to forego this just to go to a trial. You're actually doing a dishonor, and it's being dishonest to your client unless it's just a sham. I don't know. It could be that too. Because
wait a minute.
How do you represent your client and do that?
But Alex Spiro has a security clearance to look at classified documents?
Well, the classified documents, it's like a special hearing they have, and it's in front of prosecutors and the judge, and they go over this discovery. Because in these classified documents, is some kind of evidence being used against Eric Adams, which would mean what? He had access to classified doc. I mean, it gets crazy. You're going down a rabbit hole, and you're like, oh my God. And it involves classified materials right there. So he wanted to forego this, and that is not doing your client any due process.
Something very weird going on here. Federal prosecutors who indicted Mayor Eric Adams on corruption charges last week told a judge on Thursday that at least part of their case against him involved classified material that might damage national security if disclosed. So this is the prosecutors saying this. In a letter, prosecutors requested a classified meeting in a secure courtroom with Dale E. Ho, the judge here, without lawyers for Mr. Adams present. Okay, so that makes sense. Alex Spiro can't look at these classified documents. They want to do it in camera with the judge and the U.S. attorneys only. So that's Damian Rich. This is Mr. Adams was more serious or damning than what was previously known. This is amazing. I can't believe this hasn't gotten more attention. So you're saying that Alex Spiro wants to forego discovery as a result of this. Here we go. Alex Spiro, a lawyer for Mr. Adams, said in court on Wednesday that he was not concerned about any of the evidence prosecutors planned to disclose, be it classified or not. We don't believe they have any evidence in this case at all to prove these charges. Whoa, that's pretty bold.
You see Alex Spiro is doing? I mean, a lot of lawyers do it. He's trying to try the case through the media, which is why initially many of these social media influencers, many of them being alleged conservatives or MAGA people who may or may not be getting paid by someone in the Eric Adams camp to parrot this Eric Adams is a MAGA mayor, which is absolutely laughable because they're trying the case as if Eric Adams is a victim here and it's political, just like President Trump. Meanwhile, there is no evidence President Trump committed any kind of crimes. It's all statutes they used from hundreds of years ago, and they had to drop all these cases. Yet, in this instance, Jason, there's a ton of evidence that shows Eric Adams might be a foreign asset, which will probably or maybe proven in this case. That's what they're ultimately trying to show. So there's a lot of evidence here, and Alex Spiro is trying to keep everybody away from that because if it came out, then you're going to want this trial. There's no pardon. It's just, let's go. I've never heard of a preemptive pardon either, Jason, like that. You know, you're hearing all kinds of crazy rumors. Why would you pardon someone that hasn't gone to trial yet?
Well, they're kind of trying to manipulate the circumstance of what happened when Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon. But that was much different because Nixon was the president, and this sort of sidestepped any kind of unprecedented nature of indicting or charging criminally a president. It was a very unique circumstance, but they've sort of taken that to be interpreted that you could do that with anybody. Just sticking real quickly on this Alex Spiro, Eric Adams issue, I want to look at something again with you here, Sal. This is, remember when Trump went to... Remember when Trump went to the UFC fight here? He's hanging out with, look, there's Elon Musk in the background wearing a hat. He's got Dana White. Look at this is Eric Adams in the foreground. Look, RFK, Mike Johnson, everybody's like, ooh, look, we're hanging out with the president, we're hanging out with the mayor of New York, Joe Rogan, the most famous people around. Elon Musk looks like a high school kid whose ex-girlfriend just walked into the party, right? He's totally trying to like ignore Eric Adams and act like he isn't there. He looks very uncomfortable to me. What do you think of that?
I think a lot of these people were uncomfortable. I think Tulsi Gabbard was looking away. Elon Musk wants nothing to do with him. Speaker Johnson, RFK didn't even look at him.
Johnson
Kid Rock is probably saying, what the hell? You know, like nobody wants to deal with this guy.
Johnson looks delighted to be there. He just sees him as kind of another famous guy to be there. But it's also weird that Eric Adams just happens to show up at the UFC fight when Trump is there. He's obviously, jockeying. Like right here is the moment where Elon Musk, to me, looks very uncomfortable. He just sees Trump speaking to Eric Adams and he's kind of, I don't know, it's just something weird happening here. Alex Spiro is spoken about. The only people,
if you look at this instance with all these people there, the only people that said hello or said anything, Dana White, who probably said, thanks for letting me have your venue in New York City. I think Trump might have said the same kind of thing. And the only people that seem to pat this guy on the back, besides Dana White, is someone with the last name Trump. And I feel like maybe they're getting the wrong info at that time in regards to this guy, or they're just trying to be nice, saying, yeah, thanks for thanks for having us have a rally here a week ago and keeping it from going crazy. Because remember, John Shell came on TV while the rally went on inside of Madison Square Garden a week before the election, and John Shell said there were no incidents. Meanwhile, there were fights, there were arrests, but he said everything is safe. I don't know if he was trying to try to get their attention to work for the administration. He was vying for a job. I don't know, but that was an outright lie. And like anything else, Jason, John Shell has said this numerous times. He said this on numerous shows. I don't know if Newsmax is like a second job for him, but he said that they want to control the narrative. The NYPD wants to control the narrative. And then they start with the perception of things. They said, well, they're in a business, I think my friend Marlon Bethel's coined this. They're in a business of perception management. So when people say, I don't feel safe, they're saying that's a perception. But the reality is they take 5 boards out. Oh, crime is down in the subway. If you take out 2021 and 2022, crime is down 30%. Yeah. But those 2 years, what? Crime was through the roof. That you don't just omit things because you want it to fit your narrative. But remember, control the narrative and perception. That's all they are. They're in that game of perception management and controlling the narrative. And they tell you right in your face. And people, especially legacy media, are oblivious to this stuff because they're so enamored with President Trump that that's all they care about. President Trump walked out of his Mar-a-Lago today. President Trump said that he's visiting New York City. Like that just sucks all the air out of the room. And everything I've just told you is forgotten about when you should be focusing on this because local is key. Local affects you every day. The federal government, does the president affect you? Yes, but it's way down the road and how important something local is. The local people can destroy your life. And apparently to the media, they want to act like President Trump is some big, bad guy that's going to ruin everyone's life. This is why he won the election, by the way. They still want to go this way. He's a big, bad guy who's going to divide your life. But don't look at the subway crime. Don't look at that if you go down there, you might get shoved onto the tracks because our big board says crime is down 40% if you admit 2 of the last 5 years consecutively, which is a lie. But that's what Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul trot out.
Yeah. Crime is down if you don't count rape or murder. Now, along the lines of what you're saying about controlling the narrative, again, I don't want people to think that we're harping on this guy, Oren Levi, because of some kind of personal beef. I think that this guy came into my sphere because that's what he does, is control the narrative. That's his whole entire role there with NYPD. This is a picture of him sitting inside a meeting here. This is from a video that somebody took on their phone. I think I stitched this together from somebody panning around on a video. This guy, Desmond Marrero, has assaulted me, and he's been, I don't know what happened to him. He had a trial for assault, not against me, but somebody else. He's a BLM guy. Then we've got Hawk Newsom, who is the leader of BLM New York. Here's Eric Adams sitting there. I don't know what he's doing with meeting with all these people, but how many YouTube and X.com social media influencers or whatever Oren Levi is, how many Muppets do you know that get to meet with the mayor like this, Sal?
I'll tell you what, right there shows you what I say, that gentleman right there, Bootlicker News, he was an Antifa guy, then a Black Lives Matter guy, then a Freedom Movement guy. He was always an anti-police guy. Then after this, he became a pro-Eric Adams guy. Then he was pro-police. But that entire time, he was anti-Trump. But now he's pro-Trump and pro-illegal immigration before he was for immigration. This guy, what do you think this kind of guy is? Because I see him as for what it is. And I mean, look, he spoke to me very briefly, and I could tell you, he did a brief 2-minute interview that he tried to say, he turned it into everything I stated is everything I've stated publicly, that I am not a Trump supporter, that I wasn't fired because of that, and that I'm guilty of all these things. He spewed some other lies saying I lost my job because I was seen off duty with my gun on me in a Washington, D.C. hotel. They took a snapshot, just so people know. I was in some documentary or something, and they illegally are filming me, which they shouldn't even be doing. I didn't sign a waiver. And in this footage is me in a hotel room with Roger. Okay, we're in a hotel room. This was on January 5th or 6th that we were in there. And there's a picture of me in a suit with my gun on the side, with my shield. Now, mind you, off duty, you're allowed to have that as long as you are concealed. Of course, I'm in a hotel room, which is private, not public. I have a jacket that you wear. So I've never worn that gun or shield outward. Also, at my New York City Police Department internal trial, they stated the prosecutor, which was the police department advocate, public advocate, which was Samuel Yee, who ends up suing the NYPD later on. He asked me, and he goes, "You're allowed to carry your gun across state lines under HR 218, which is the law that states all police officers in the United States can carry their gun anywhere. But you have to have your ID card," which I always had, my police ID, "your shield, and your gun." So if I had this gun, it was concealed. And the only reason you saw it was because I was in a hotel room and this guy illegally filmed me in this documentary without signing a waiver. He was supposed to just film Roger. So that's it. He says that that's why they terminated me. This guy really should focus on not being such a villainous Muppet, brushing his teeth or fixing them, whatever it is. His breath is worse than Wolf Blitzer's because he doesn't stop smoking cigarettes. And his obsession with people should stop. He needs to look at himself in the mirror and realize that he's a rotten human being. And he needs to change his way because, listen, that's why people don't believe you. And by the way, like I told you, Jason, I was told by people on the ground that he chased Hispanics around trying to videotape them saying they were members of Tren de Aragua. But everyone watches his feed thinking that he's some migrant shelter czar, which he has special access. He had all kinds of access to things that the normal reporter doesn't. And people should have looked into this. But he's one of those guys, like we said, Jason, wants to control the narrative. That's what the NYPD does best.
It's very interesting, Sal, because you've told us about that, and I like the way you and I are going through all this because it's causing me to think about things. And the concept of chasing people around and claiming that they're Tren de Aragua, why the hell would he need to do that? There's no shortage of Tren de Aragua people who are actually there. I think a lot of people saw this video where I wasn't looking for Tren de Aragua. I wasn't trying to do any kind of expose or anything like that. I was just walking down the street and happened to basically step in it. And then I went to report it to the police. And that was where that whole thing came about, where the guy said he was Hugh Johnson and all of that. So, could it be that he's trying to show you people who are not Tren de Aragua so that you're not looking at the people who actually are Tren de Aragua? That sort of makes some sense to me, doesn't it?
I would think that more than likely what this guy's trying to do is he's looking for clicks. He wants you to pay into his, whatever it is he has, is pay me for, my work and all that. That's what I think he's truly trying to do. But he's making things up. Obviously, you can't be chasing down Hispanics saying they're all Tren de Aragua. You don't even know who they are, but he'll do that. That's what I was told. That's an allegation. But if you look, I don't know if there's any footage of him, but that's some of it. And he also was interviewing people that were from the migrant shelter. I know if any other reporter tried that, the police would come over to you immediately and say, "Get the hell out of here before we arrest you." So
but that's what I'm
these
saying.
are things that people just don't, they're not factoring in.
You've got it right there. That's what I'm saying. If he was actually interested in doing news about Tren de Aragua penetrating migrant hotels, here it is, the Walcott on 31st Street, but I've never seen him there. Yeah. He goes over to the Roosevelt and he's, telling people, here's a guy, Tren de Aragua's pointing a video camera at me as I'm talking to the police about they're trying to sell a baby. And this car, I don't know if you can see it right there. This is like a certified pre-owned. It looked brand new, that's a 2018 or 19 Ford Escape. and it had paper Florida tags on it. Look, there's no front plate on that car. That's not legal in New York, and I don't know who got this guy Florida tags, but here's another guy who's coming over to the dude with the baby. This looks like Tren de Aragua to me. What are they doing with this one-year-old baby? And they're on the phone. I haven't seen Oren Levi talking about that, and when I tried to talk about it, you know, these guys, they almost seemed like they wanted to kill me. There was another incident when I went back to that hotel. Hasn't received nearly as much attention because it didn't involve a child that time. And it just, you know, that one, somebody clipped it from my live stream and put it out on TikTok is what really got a lot of people to see that. But, you know, I was curious what was going on at the hotel there. So I went back one time. Let me play this for you a second because this is kind of scary here. Watch what happens to me here. I'm just looking at the cars. You've got out-of-state plates all over the place in front of this hotel. Maybe that's normal. Here, look at this guy with the mask on in the red. Here's somebody with the stuff in the trunk. This guy's doing something over here. Is this a drop? What's he putting up there?
It looks a little suspicious. The guy with the...
Look at this guy. Look at he's recording me.
That is 100%, and he's filming you.
What you doing here, man? What are you doing?
Why is he filming you?
Watch.
What are you doing?
Get my
You
face.
see your face, bro. You here selling babies?
New phone.
Interesting.
Watch this.
Something going on at the Walcott Hotel. Who you with, man? Tren de Aragua? You're going to jail soon, buddy. Who's that?
There's a network on this street, Sal. Look at this.
Yeah.
All these guys. The weirdest thing is there's somebody across the street. I just barely get him. Look at him, he's following me.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Not too talkative.
They're signaling you over there.
There were guys behind me. I think I'd turn around and get him here. There's people in these cars watching everything. There's something really going on in this street. There's one last guy I want you to see. Over here in the trees.
You know that guy across the street?
You know, it's like they got scouts all over the place. And there was a Caucasian guy who appears at the end of the video. And remember, this is when I called the police and they said, you know, I said the Walcott Hotel, they first assaulted me. Justin McLaurin assaulted me, threw me out, uniformed officer. He's 24 years old, been on the job 1 or 2 years. Then the Detectives Bureau told me there, you got Hugh Johnson over there. Told me to go meet them at 10:30 in the morning when I first came under surveillance. Then all this business, it's pretty nuts.
He's still filming you, which is
He
crazy.
is. There's one more guy who's going to show up here at the very end. We'll just let that play out because I want you to see it. I mean, the cops are not at all interested in figuring out what's going on over here. In fact, the evidence that I've seen leads me to believe they're involved. Here, look at this. Oh, everybody's got their cell phone out. Look at that guy with the mohawk.
You guys all know each other. You better call the regular cops, man. There's something going on over here.
This guy's giving him a ticket.
Yeah. He's giving her a ticket, yeah. That's That's amazing.
Maybe it was another day that there was the Caucasian guy with the black, and I guess it was another day. I've been by there. There's so much weird stuff going on. It's really truly incredible, Sal. We've been going for about an hour here. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about today. I think it's really important that you and I continue doing these shows and sharing all this information that you know about with everybody. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up today's show?
That's a sad video you took, because I remember the walkout hotel before all of this happened, because I used to work right there, like a block away. And I always saw shady characters, but never one that you showed up on the block and the guy's filming you already. Because listen, you would see many people walking around with the selfie stick and videotaping. I don't know why somebody would be covered up, first of all, bundled up. You can't see their face, only their eyes. And he's filming you the minute you show up with your selfie stick. So something's definitely off there. And then, you know, the way that one seems to know the other guy, a guy's walking around staring at you, people coming in and out of there. That was always a scene that was always a little what we call shady. But in that video, why is that guy filming you the whole time? You don't even, like, there's numerous people that walk around filming themselves.
Yeah.
So I just say,
they know me.
You know,
they know me.
He's filming you for some reason. I don't know why. You're not a threat to him. You're not a threat to anyone. So
not a physical threat.
Again, you are what we call, what you could join the list of what they call radicals, we'll say, because you want to tell the truth and ask questions. So you're a radical. But if you ran around with the controlling the narrative and perception management, you'd be just as good as Oren Levy is on the street.
Well, Sal, it's always great to see you. I definitely want to encourage people to visit salgreco.com, support Sal and his incredible work. There's nobody else doing this kind of reporting exactly in the way that Sal is. His knowledge, his experience, his understanding of the NYPD, it's invaluable. Sal, you're really helping me understand it a lot. I hope that people will click on that Support the Sal Greco Show button. You can send him a financial contribution of your choice. Get on there and make sure Sal can keep this reporting going. You can also sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Your sponsorship dollars are going towards all this technology that you can't quite see, but luckily today it didn't fail us. Sal, thank you for your patience with me. I'm really sorry about that error the other day. I'm glad we had this broadcast. I look forward to the next.